Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to this channel, my name is Grace and I live in a container house. You probably know me because of my container house that has blown up, and I appreciate the support, I appreciate the likes, subscription, I appreciate your comments. If you've not seen the video yet, you are not too late. You can see it through this link. Otherwise, for the support that I've seen so far, I really appreciate. And just to do a follow-up video, this is a video about costings, a video that has been requested by so many people. It's a question that has been asked. If you go through the comment section of the previous video, I think this is the most asked question, and so I think it's the right time to answer this question, in as much as I feel like I still would have taken a bit more time to answer this question. Maybe I should just give an answer, even if it's not a complete answer. Maybe I'll do another video on the costings. As you can tell from the title of the video, this video is about the cost, how much I've spent so far on my container house, and why I chose to do a container house as opposed to a brick and mortar house. If you're seeing me for the first time in this channel, I have been doing videos on this container house as well as other container houses on our company channel, Cubes and Containers Design Kenya. And some of the things I'm going to mention here, I had already mentioned in the other video. I am an interior designer and I work for Cubes and Containers Design Kenya. So what we do, we sell and convert shipping containers, meaning we have a yard that we operate from. When Corona hit, paying rent became a challenge, and so I needed a solution that would be a one-off solution. I would not keep on thinking about rent, just in case things do not turn out the way I had hoped or the way I had planned. I think one thing that Corona has taught us is that things can change. Things can change when you least expect, and so securing a space where I didn't have to pay rent seemed like a need at that point. So I requested for a space within our yard where we least used, and so we could not place our containers for fabrication. It somehow became dead space, and I chose my design, my container house, based on the available space. Because we are on a leased piece of land, it meant that any structure that I put up on that premise would have to move eventually, whether in an year's time, 2 years, 3 years, but eventually it would have to move. And so the only option that made sense for that kind of a situation was a container house. Besides, what other method would I use if I keep preaching container houses and I don't drink container houses? I had to drink what I preach. And so I felt it would be nice to experience a container house, so that when I'm convincing a client to go for a container house, I know exactly what I'm telling that client. I built this container house as a typical client, meaning budget was of importance to me. It had to make sense. And my sense of budget, I had to translate it from what I used to pay. I used to pay 15,000 for rent, and so my alternative had to be not so far from what I was currently paying. Otherwise, it will not make sense going ahead to build a container house when I can rent. However, I believe rent money is dead money. So if I can pay for something that I know will be mine eventually, I would go for that option. But if it's just to pay rent, I cannot take back whatever amount I've spent on rent. I cannot say that this was an investment over a period of years. And so this made sense. I am also extremely hands-on. And so building my container house, it only made sense if some of the things I would do myself. And so part of the things that I have done myself in my container house include my laminate flooring, My staircase, the wooden bit, that was a DIY project. My cabinetry, my bedroom cabinetry was a DIY. My decks, after the metal structure was laid, I covered the metal structure with pallets, and that was a DIY project. This made sure I reduced my labor costs by a significant amount. And so instead of paying for everything that I have, I only paid for things that I knew I could not achieve with the quality that I intended, or rather the structural bit, the whole structural bit of my container house was done by professionals that I worked with. I only managed to do things that, or I only decided to do things that I could easily change, things that I know would not compromise on the integrity of the house. That way I'm safe. We have different processes that we follow in terms of container conversion. And one of the very first processes that we follow is design. I'm lucky because I'm the company's designer, and this brings me to a topic that I am very passionate about. When it comes to container architecture, I feel like it's a completely different field. That's the new name that people have coined around shipping container architecture. So shipping container architecture is either known as cargotecture or architecture. It's a field that is relatively new in the world. It's a field that is relatively new in Kenya, but I personally believe this would be a field, if I'm hoping for the day that I would see cargotecture or architecture as a whole profession, taught in campuses, taught in schools, so that we have more professionals coming into the field, and you don't just have people who build containers just because they know a thing or two about metalworks. Now to the costs in relation to the process. We start off with design, and because I designed my own container house, I had zero costs on design. If you are to get a professional to do the design for you, then it would range between 30,000 to 60,000 Kenyan shillings. That was money I managed to save. After design, the next process is approvals. Because this house is on the same premise as the business, we got a one-off approval. It's a temporary structure. It will move the moment the business will move premises. And so it also does not make sense getting a permanent permit for something that will change locations. And so we managed to get an approval as a wholesome approval that combines other structures within the company and this container house. So I cannot tell you for sure how much approvals costed for mine, because it was part of other structures that we've put up as a company. Foundation. My container has been elevated by pillars. And so the only bit that I needed to do was the pillars, the 4 pillars. A 20 foot is carried by 4 pillars. A 40 foot is carried by 6 pillars. So I only did 4 pillars to support my house. I've left space under, and so there's no other cost other than the 4 pillars. Again, the costings for my pillars were cheaper because we have materials on site, and what we needed to buy was just cement, a bit of ballast, I think, and sand. Not in full capacity of the pillars, but if you're to do this within Nairobi, then a pillar would cost you roughly about 10,000 a pillar. So you would spend about 40,000 for all the 4 pillars. I managed to spend about 20,000 for the same purchase of containers. By the time I was purchasing my containers, prices were relatively low, but we have experienced shortage from January this year, 2021, and prices have gone higher than expected. I bought my containers at 180,000 per container. I've used 2 20-foot containers. If you're to buy the same containers now as of the making of this video, then you'd buy a container at 260,000 per container. So again, there's a bit of save there. Transport and offloading of these containers to site. My house is built at the same location where we do our conversions, and so the only costs I had in terms of transport and offloading or logistics was to move them from one point of the yard to the other point. So of course this cannot be done for free. You need to have a cost attached to it. And so I spent about 10,000 to move both containers. If you're moving containers within Nairobi, moving one container will cost you 15,000 transport and offloading. If you are able to move two at the same time, then you're looking at a range between 25,000 to 30,000, depending on the transporter that you will contract. I am connected to the grid, and once again, I'm taking advantage of what is already available on site. We have electricity on site, we have a sewer system on site, and so the only thing I had to do was connect it to the grid, whatever that is already there. If you are placing your container home in a space where you do not have any of these connections, then you'll have to consider electrical connections, you'll have to consider sewer systems. Nature will not allow me finish this video outside, so I have to continue with the rest of the part from inside. See you in a bit. If you are still watching this video so far, it means it's content that you'd like and you'd want to see more of. Kindly subscribe to our channel. Also click on the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload new content. Also feel free to share and like this video so that we reach more people who intend to join the Living Tiny community in Kenya. In my design, I have not insulated the lower container. Reason to this is I wanted to experience both options, when you insulate your container and when you do not insulate your container. So my lower container is not insulated, but my top container is insulated. With that in mind, if we are to combine the costings for insulation, padding, electrical wiring, plumbing, tiling, floor laminates, all metal works, and generally all works that I've done to the containers, then my cost, I'll give you a bold round figure. Reason why I cannot give you an exact figure is because, one, I am not yet done with my house 100%. There are a few things that I want to change. I'm changing them because I'm one person who gets extremely tired with spaces very fast. And so an option that I would think would be nice now might not be the case a few months from now, and I have lived in the house for 8 months. So there are things that I will change over time, and this is just a bold round figure to give you a guide. I have spent about between 600,000 to 700,000 so far. If I was to insulate my lower container, then I'd be looking at about 800, 850. Kindly note that I started my building process more than 8 months ago, and so some of the materials that I used then would not be the same cost now, mainly because of the shortage that we are facing worldwide, and that has made us experience an influctuation on costings. Other than that, I would give you a projection of how much it would cost you now if you're to do the same. If you're to do the same in terms of fit out, you'll be looking at a budget between 950,000 to 1.1 million, depending on how you'd want your interiors to be and the choice of materials and generally the design. How I did my months for it to make sense to me before I chose to do a container house. I took a scenario where, say, I'm on a leased piece of land for, or give or take, I'm on this space for 5 years. And my working budget was 1.5 million. Then I would have 60 months. If I'm to distribute the 1.5 million throughout the 60 months, then I'll be paying 25,000 per month as rent, assuming I'm paying rent. So within 5 years, at 25,000, I'm able to pay back 1.5 million. And this is a house I can sell when I'm done. Say I no longer need a one-bedroom house, or I no longer need this house. Maybe I want to do a different structure, or I want to move to a different town or thereabout. I can sell the same house at almost the same cost that I built it with. Meaning that container homes do not depreciate, they appreciate. If I'm to rent it out, maybe I'm no longer in need of this house, I choose to rent it out and make money out of it, I would rent it for 15,000, 25,000. Between 15,000 to 25,000. If I'm renting it out as Airbnb, the minimum I would be going for would be about 3,000 per night, between 2,000 to 3,000 per night. And so that made sense for me. That made sense. It made complete sense. It made sense than just paying rent for a space that I cannot call my own at the end of the day. And so the only headache I have now is to find a piece of land that I would shift this house to when it's time for me to move. So far you know about my container house, you know about my thought process as I thought of doing a container house, and you have seen how my container house has turned out. I am really thankful to those who have watched my videos, those who have subscribed to my channel. Continue liking, sharing and subscribing this to my channel. So far I have taken you through my thought process, I have taken you through my building process, and you have seen my container house tour. Thank you so much for the support that I've seen in the other video. It has received so many views, it has so many comments, I did not expect it. I say thank you for the love that you've shown me. I still want to keep on building this tiny community or tiny house living community in Kenya. And so by you sharing this video, by you liking, you encourage more people, or you make it possible for more people to get to see my content. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please feel free to subscribe and click on the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. In the comment section, let me know what you think about this video. If you've not watched my first video, it's not yet too late. You can quickly rush back and watch the previous video so that we move together. You are not left behind when you continue with this process. Until next time, bye.